I never thought much about my smartwatch. It was just another piece of tech, a silent companion on my wrist, tracking steps, nudging me to stand, buzzing with notifications I mostly ignored. I bought it for the sleep tracking, mostly, a way to convince myself I was getting enough rest, or at least to have some data to blame when I wasn't. I never expected it to become the only witness to something I can't explain, something that still makes my skin crawl every time I look at the band pressed against my pulse. It started on a Thursday. Not a special day, not a day I'd remember for any other reason. I'd worked late, eaten dinner in front of the TV, and gone to bed a little after midnight. My apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that settles in after a long day, when the city outside has finally given up its noise. I set my alarm, checked my messages, and slipped the watch onto its charger for a few minutes while I brushed my teeth. When I came back, I hesitated, then decided to wear it to bed. I wanted to see if the new update would finally fix the bug that kept misreading my REM cycles. I fell asleep quickly, the way you do when you're too tired to think. I don't remember dreaming. I don't remember anything, really, until the morning. The sun was already up, painting the walls with that pale, watery light that makes everything look a little unreal. My watch buzzed gently, waking me before my phone's alarm could blare. I sat up, groggy, and checked the screen. "Good morning, Alex," it read, in that cheerful font that always felt a little too optimistic. "You slept 7 hours, 42 minutes. Heart rate, normal. Sleep quality, 82%. I almost dismissed it, but something caught my eye. A tiny red dot on the activity graph, right around 3:13 a.m. I frowned, tapped the screen, and scrolled back. The heart rate spike was sharp, sudden, a jagged peak in the middle of an otherwise smooth line. My pulse had jumped from 58 to 112 in less than a minute, then dropped back down just as quickly. I tried to remember if I'd had a nightmare, but nothing came to mind. No cold sweat, no racing thoughts, just a blank space where that hour should have been. Curious, I opened the sleep tracking app on my phone. The data was all there: light sleep, deep sleep, REM, all mapped out in neat little bars. But at 3:13, the watch had recorded something else. An audio file. I didn't even know it could do that. The icon was small, almost hidden, a gray microphone with a timestamp. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the play button. I told myself it was probably just me snoring, or maybe the sound of a car outside. But I pressed play anyway. The recording was short. 11 seconds. At first, all I heard was the soft rustle of sheets, the slow, steady rhythm of my own breathing. Then, a faint click, like the sound of a door latch. I sat up straighter, heart thumping. My apartment door was locked. I always checked it before bed. The next sound was harder to place, a low, almost mechanical hum, rising and falling in the background. It didn't sound like anything in my apartment. Not the fridge, not the heater, not the old pipes that sometimes groaned in the night. Then, just before the recording ended, there was a whisper. Not words, exactly, but the unmistakable cadence of a voice, too soft to make out, but close. Too close. The hair on my arm stood up. I replayed the file, turning the volume all the way up, but the voice was still just out of reach, like a memory you can't quite grab. I sat there for a long time, listening to those 11 seconds over and over, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe the watch had glitched. Maybe it had picked up a stray radio signal, or a neighbor's TV through the walls. But the feeling in my chest wouldn't go away. That sense of being watched, of something just out of sight. I got up, checked the apartment, every door, every window, every closet. Nothing was out of place. The locks were still set, the chains still drawn. I even checked the hallway, but it was empty, just the same faded carpet and flickering lights as always. I tried to shake it off. I went to work, answered emails, sat through meetings, but the memory of that recording followed me all day. I kept glancing at my watch, half expecting it to buzz with another message, another warning. By the time I got home, I'd almost convinced myself it was nothing. Just a glitch, a blip in the data. I made dinner, watched TV, and tried to ignore the way the shadows seemed to gather in the corners of my apartment. That night, I hesitated before putting the watch back on. I told myself I was being ridiculous, that I just had a bad dream I couldn't remember. But I wanted to know. I needed to know if it would happen again. So I set the watch, checked the locks twice, and went to bed. Sleep didn't come as easily this time. I lay awake, listening to the hum of the city outside, the creak of the building settling. Every sound seemed louder, sharper, as if the night itself was holding its breath. I finally drifted off sometime after 2, the watch pressed tight against my wrist. When I woke up, the first thing I did was check the app. Another spike, this time at 3:17 a.m. Another audio file, this one longer, 23 seconds. My hands shook as I pressed play. The recording started the same way, my breathing, the rustle of sheets. Then, footsteps. Slow, deliberate, moving across the floor. My floor. The sound was unmistakable, the creak of the old boards near the window, the soft thud of bare feet. I sat frozen, listening as the footsteps stopped beside my bed. The whisper came again, louder this time, but still impossible to understand. A single word, maybe, or just a breath. Then, silence. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the replay button, my mind racing through every possible explanation. Maybe I'd gotten up in my sleep. Maybe I was sleepwalking, something I'd never done before, but people changed, didn't they? Stress, exhaustion, a new medication, any of those could have triggered it. But the footsteps didn't sound like mine. They were too slow, too heavy, as if someone was deliberately trying not to wake me. I replayed the file, this time with headphones, straining to catch every detail. The whisper was clearer now, but still not quite words. It was almost like someone exhaling right next to the microphone, a breath that wasn't mine. I spent the rest of the morning in a fog, replaying the audio in my head, jumping at every sound in the apartment. I checked the locks again, even though I knew they hadn't been touched. I looked for footprints, for any sign that someone had been inside, but there was nothing. No scuff marks, no dirt, nothing out of place. I even checked the windows, but they were locked tight, the sills undisturbed. I tried to tell myself it was just a glitch, that the watch had picked up some stray noise, but the feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. At work, I couldn't focus. Every time my watch buzzed, I jumped, half expecting another alert, another recording. I started searching online, looking for stories of smartwatches recording strange things at night. Most of what I found was harmless, people snoring, pets jumping on the bed, the occasional sleep talker muttering nonsense. But nothing like what I'd heard. No footsteps, no whispers, no sense of someone else in the room. That night, I set up my phone to record as well, placing it on the nightstand with the microphone pointed toward the bed. I wanted to catch whatever it was, to prove to myself that I wasn't imagining things. I double-checked the locks, closed the bedroom door, and left the hallway light on, just in case. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the city outside. Every creak, every groan of the building made me flinch. I finally drifted off, the watch pressed tight against my wrist, the phone's red recording light blinking in the dark. I woke up at 6:30, heart pounding, the memory of a dream slipping away before I could grab it. I reached for my phone first, scrolling through the audio files. There was one, timestamped 3:21 a.m., just like before. I played it back, holding my breath. The recording started with silence, then the sound of my own breathing, slow and steady. Then, the footsteps. Louder this time, as if whoever, or whatever, was in the room was getting bolder. The boards creaked, the footsteps stopped beside the bed, and then the whisper. This time, I could almost make out a word. Listen. The voice was low, almost mechanical, but unmistakably human. I checked the watch next. Another spike, another audio file. The data matched the phone exactly, 3:21 a.m., heart rate spiking, then dropping back down. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the screen, trying to make sense of it. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? That my watch had recorded footsteps and a whisper in the middle of the night? They'd think I was crazy. I thought about calling my parents, but I didn't want to worry them. I thought about telling a friend, but I couldn't find the words. Instead, I spent the day researching. I looked up everything I could find about sleepwalking, night terrors, even paranormal activity. I found stories of people who'd woken up to find things moved in their apartments, of strange noises in the night, of unexplained cold spots and flickering lights. But nothing matched what I was experiencing. No one else had a recording, proof that something was happening while they slept. That night, I set up a camera. I positioned it on the dresser, aimed at the bed, the red light blinking in the dark. I checked the locks, closed the bedroom door, and left the hallway light on. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for sleep to come. It took a long time, but eventually, exhaustion won out. I woke up at 5:47, heart pounding, the memory of a dream slipping away. I reached for the phone, scrolling through the audio files. There was one, timestamped 3:19 a.m. I played it back, holding my breath. The recording started with silence, then the sound of my own breathing. Then, the footsteps. Louder this time, as if whoever, or whatever, was in the room was getting closer. The boards creaked, the footsteps stopped beside the bed, and then the whisper. This time, I could make out the word. Listen. The voice was low, almost mechanical, but unmistakably human. I checked the camera next. The footage was grainy, the room bathed in the soft glow of the hallway light. For the first few hours, nothing happened. I watched myself toss and turn, the sheets twisting around my legs. Then, at 3:19, the door to the bedroom opened. I froze, watching as the door swung inward, slowly, as if pushed by an unseen hand. There was no one there. No shadow, no figure, just the door moving on its own. The footsteps started, the boards creaking, but nothing appeared on the screen. The door closed, just as slowly, and the room was still again. I sat there, staring at the screen, my mind racing. I replayed the footage, looking for any sign of a shadow, a reflection, anything that could explain what I was seeing. But there was nothing. Just the door opening and closing, the footsteps, the whisper. I checked the locks again, but they were still set, the chain still drawn. I checked the windows, but they were locked tight, the sills undisturbed. I didn't go to work that day. I called in sick, my voice shaky as I left the message. I couldn't face the world, not with the weight of what I'd seen and heard pressing down on me. I spent the morning pacing my apartment, checking every corner, every shadow, searching for something, anything, that would make sense of it all. I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the light, a draft, a glitch in the camera. But the audio files, the heart rate spikes, the way the door moved in perfect sync with the footsteps, none of it fit together in any way I could explain. I called my friend Jamie, the only person I trusted enough to tell. I tried to keep my voice steady as I explained, but the words tumbled out in a rush. I know it sounds crazy, I said, but I have the recordings. I have the video. I just need someone else to see it, to tell me I'm not losing my mind. Jamie listened, quiet at first, then asked to come over. I hesitated, embarrassed by the mess in my apartment, but agreed. I needed someone else to witness it, to share the burden. Jamie arrived an hour later, coffee in hand, concern etched across their face. I played the audio files first, watching their expressions shift from skepticism to unease. When I showed the video, Jamie leaned forward, eyes wide, replaying the moment the door opened and closed. "That's not possible," they whispered. "You're sure you didn't get up? You didn't sleepwalk?" I shook my head. "I've never sleepwalked in my life. And the door, look, you can see my feet. I never move." Jamie rewound the footage, watching it frame by frame. "There's no one there," they said, voice barely above a whisper. "But something's in the room with you." We spent the afternoon trying to debunk it. Jamie checked the hinges, the lock, the frame. We tested the door, pushing it open and closed, trying to recreate the slow, deliberate movement. But every time, the door either swung too fast or stuck halfway. There was no draft, no loose hinge, nothing that could explain what we'd seen. Jamie even checked the hallway, looking for any sign that someone had been inside, but the security camera by the elevator showed nothing. No one had entered or left my floor all night. By evening, we were both exhausted. Jamie offered to stay the night, just in case. I agreed, grateful for the company. We set up the camera again, this time with Jamie's phone recording from a different angle. We checked the locks, closed the bedroom door, and left the hallway light on. Jamie slept on the couch, just outside my door, promising to wake me if anything happened. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding. Every sound seemed amplified, every shadow stretched longer than it should. I finally drifted off, the watch pressed tight against my wrist, the phone's red recording light blinking in the dark. I woke up at 4:02, heart racing, the memory of a dream slipping away. I reached for my phone, hands shaking. There was a new audio file, timestamped 3:23 a.m. I played it back, holding my breath. The recording started with silence, then the sound of my own breathing. Then, the footsteps. Louder this time, as if whoever, or whatever, was in the room was getting closer. The boards creaked, the footsteps stopped beside the bed, and then the whisper. This time, I could make out the word. "Listen." The voice was low, almost mechanical, but unmistakably human. I checked Jamie's phone next. The footage was grainy, the room bathed in the soft glow of the hallway light. For the first few hours, nothing happened. I watched myself toss and turn, the sheets twisting around my legs. Then, at 3:23, the door to the bedroom opened. I froze, watching as the door swung inward, slowly, as if pushed by an unseen hand. There was no one there. No shadow, no figure, just the door moving on its own. The footsteps started, the boards creaking, but nothing appeared on the screen. The door closed, just as slowly, and the room was still again. I sat there, staring at the screen, my mind racing. I replayed the footage, looking for any sign of a shadow, a reflection, anything that could explain what I was seeing. But there was nothing. Just the door opening and closing, the footsteps, the whisper. I checked the locks again, but they were still set, the chain still drawn. I checked the windows, but they were locked tight, the sills undisturbed. Jamie woke up, rubbing their eyes, and I showed them the footage. They watched in silence, then looked at me, fear flickering in their eyes. "We need to get out of here," they said. "Just for a night. Just to see if it follows you." I nodded, too tired to argue. We packed a bag, grabbed the watch and the phones, and left the apartment just as the sun was rising. We checked into a hotel across town, a bland, anonymous place with thick curtains and a heavy door. Jamie insisted on setting up the camera again, just in case. I wore the watch, set the phone to record, and tried to sleep. The room felt strange, unfamiliar, but safe. I drifted off, the hum of the air conditioner lulling me into a restless sleep. When I woke up, the first thing I did was check the watch. No spikes, no audio files. The phone's recording was empty, just the sound of my breathing and Jamie's soft snoring from the other bed. For the first time in days, I felt a flicker of relief. Maybe it was the apartment. Maybe something about that place was causing it. Maybe I wasn't haunted, just unlucky. We spent the morning in the hotel, both of us too wired to go back to sleep, but too drained to do much else. Jamie scrolled through the footage again, just to be sure, but there was nothing, no footsteps, no whispers, no doors moving on their own. I checked my watch's sleep data, looking for any sign of a spike, but the graph was smooth, my heart rate steady all night. It was as if whatever had been happening in my apartment simply didn't exist here. I tried to convince myself it was over, that I could go back to my life, but a part of me was still waiting for the other shoe to drop. By noon, Jamie had to leave for work. I promised I'd call if anything happened, and they made me swear I wouldn't go back to the apartment alone. I agreed, but as soon as the door closed behind them, the silence pressed in. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the watch, replaying the last few nights in my mind. The footsteps, the whisper, the door moving on its own. I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't finished with me, that I'd only bought myself a little time. I tried to distract myself, watched TV, scrolled through social media, even tried to nap, but my mind kept drifting back to the recordings. I opened the files again, listening to the whispers, the footsteps, the way my heart rate spiked at the exact same time every night. I slowed the audio down, ran it through filters, trying to make out the words. Listen. That was all I could hear, over and over, as if it was trying to tell me something, as if it needed me to understand. By late afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I called my landlord, told him there was something wrong with the door, that it kept opening on its own. He promised to send someone to check it out, but I could hear the skepticism in his voice. I didn't blame him. If someone had called me with this story a week ago, I wouldn't have believed it either. I met the maintenance guy at the apartment just before sunset. Jamie came with me, refusing to let me go alone. We watched as he checked the hinges, the lock, the frame. He tightened a few screws, oiled the hinges, and declared it fixed. Sometimes these old doors just settle, he said, shrugging. Nothing to worry about. I nodded, thanked him, and waited until he was gone before turning to Jamie. It's not the door, I whispered. I know. Jamie's voice was quiet, but steady. But we had to try. We stood in the living room, the apartment suddenly feeling smaller, the shadows deeper. I didn't want to stay, but I couldn't leave either. I needed answers. I needed to know what was happening to me. Jamie suggested we try one more night, together, with both cameras running and the watch recording. If it happens again, they said, we'll have more proof. Maybe we'll catch something we missed. We set up the cameras, one in the bedroom, one in the hallway. I wore the watch, set the phone to record, and left the bedroom door open this time, just to see if it made a difference. Jamie sat on the couch, laptop open, determined to stay awake and watch the feeds in real time. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, every muscle tense, waiting for something to happen. I must have drifted off, because the next thing I remember is Jamie shaking me awake, their face pale in the glow of the laptop screen. It's happening, they whispered. Look. I sat up, heart pounding, and stared at the screen. The bedroom camera showed the door slowly swinging open, just like before. The hallway camera showed nothing, no one in the hall, no movement, just the empty corridor stretching away into darkness. Then, the footsteps. Louder than ever, echoing through the apartment, the boards creaking under invisible weight. I watched, frozen, as the door to the bedroom opened wider, then stopped. The footsteps paused beside the bed, and then the whisper. This time, it was clear, unmistakable. Listen. The voice was right next to the microphone, so close I could almost feel the breath on my skin. Jamie and I stared at each other, fear and disbelief warring in our eyes. Did you see anything? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jamie shook their head. Nothing. The hallway was empty. But the sound, they trailed off, shivering. It was right here. We replayed the footage, frame by frame, looking for any sign of movement, any shadow, any clue. But there was nothing. Just the door opening, the footsteps, the whisper. The watch data showed another spike, my heart rate doubling in the space of a few seconds, then dropping back down. It was as if my body knew something was in the room with me, even if my eyes couldn't see it. We sat in silence for a long time, the weight of what we'd witnessed pressing down on us. I wanted to leave, to run as far as I could, but I knew it wouldn't matter. Whatever this was, it wasn't tied to the apartment. It was tied to me. Jamie finally broke the silence, their voice trembling but determined. We need help. Real help. Not just maintenance guys or landlords. Someone who knows about this kind of thing. I nodded, too exhausted to argue. The fear had settled into my bones, a cold ache that wouldn't go away. I thought about all the stories I'd read online, forums full of people who'd experienced things they couldn't explain, who'd turned to strangers for answers when no one else would listen. Maybe it was time to become one of those people. We spent the next hour searching, scrolling through endless threads and message boards. Most of what we found was nonsense: ghost hunters selling overpriced equipment, self-proclaimed psychics offering to cleanse my apartment for a fee. But one name kept coming up, buried in the comments: Dr. Evelyn Hart, a sleep researcher who'd made a name for herself investigating cases where technology picked up things the human mind couldn't. She'd written articles about sleep paralysis, night terrors, even cases where smart devices had recorded unexplained phenomena. Her email was hard to find, but Jamie managed to dig it up from an old university page. I hesitated before writing, unsure how to start. How do you explain to a stranger that your smartwatch is recording footsteps and whispers in the middle of the night? That your door opens on its own, that your heart rate spikes at the same time every night? In the end, I just told the truth. I attached the audio files, the video clips, the sleep data, and hit send before I could change my mind. The reply came faster than I expected. Dr. Hart's message was brief but direct: I've reviewed your files. I'd like to speak with you as soon as possible. Please call me at this number. She included a phone number and a time, 8 p.m. Jamie squeezed my hand, offering silent support as I dialed. Dr. Hart's voice was calm, professional, but there was an undercurrent of curiosity I couldn't miss. She asked me to describe everything, from the first night to the most recent recording. She listened without interrupting, occasionally asking for clarification. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment, then spoke. You're not alone, Alex. I've seen cases like this before, though they're rare. Sometimes, technology picks up things our senses can't. It's possible your smartwatch is acting as a kind of conduit, recording phenomena that would otherwise go unnoticed. I swallowed, my mouth dry. What do I do? There are a few things we can try, she said. First, I want you to keep recording. Use as many devices as you can: your watch, your phone, cameras. The more data we have, the better. Second, I'd like to visit your apartment, if you're comfortable with that. I want to set up some equipment of my own, see if we can capture anything else. Jamie and I agreed, desperate for answers. Dr. Hart arrived the next evening, a small woman with sharp eyes and a calm presence that made me feel safer just by being near her. She set up her equipment: motion sensors, audio recorders, even a thermal camera, explaining each step as she went. We're looking for patterns, she said. Anything that repeats, anything that stands out. That night, the three of us sat in the living room, the apartment bathed in the soft glow of Dr. Hart's monitors. The hours crawled by, each minute stretching longer than the last. Midnight came and went. At 3:12 a.m., the sensors beeped. Dr. Hart leaned forward, eyes fixed on the screen. Something's moving in the hallway, she whispered. We watched as the thermal camera picked up a cold spot, a shape that moved slowly toward the bedroom door. The audio recorder picked up the footsteps, louder than ever, echoing through the apartment. The door swung open, just as before, and the whisper came, clear, unmistakable. Listen. Dr. Hart's face was pale, but her hands were steady as she adjusted the equipment. This is extraordinary, she murmured. I've never seen a pattern this consistent. Whatever this is, it's trying to communicate. I felt a chill run down my spine. What does it want? Dr. Hart shook her head. I don't know. But it's focused on you. The heart rate spikes, the timing, the way it always approaches your bed, it's as if it's trying to get your attention. Jamie squeezed my hand, their grip tight. What do we do now? Dr. Hart considered for a moment. I want to try something. Alex, tonight, when you hear the whisper, I want you to respond. Speak out loud. Ask it what it wants. Sometimes, direct communication can break the pattern, or at least give us more information. The thought terrified me, but I agreed. Anything was better than feeling helpless. We set up the equipment again, this time with Dr. Hart's recorders running alongside my own. I lay in bed, heart pounding, waiting for the footsteps, the whisper, the moment when I'd have to speak. The hours dragged by. I drifted in and out of sleep, the watch pressed tight against my wrist, the red recording light blinking in the dark. At 3:18, the footsteps began. The boards creaked, the door swung open, and the whisper came, closer than ever. Listen. I forced myself to sit up, my voice shaking. I'm listening. What do you want? For a moment, there was only silence. Then, the whisper came again, softer this time, almost pleading. Remember. The word echoed in my mind, bouncing around the room like a stray thought I couldn't pin down. Remember. I repeated it aloud, my voice barely more than a whisper. Jamie and Dr. Hart stared at me, eyes wide, waiting for something else to happen. But the room was silent again, the only sound my own ragged breathing and the faint hum of the equipment. I felt a strange pressure in my chest, as if the air had thickened, as if something was waiting for me to understand. Dr. Hart leaned forward, her voice gentle but urgent. Alex, do you remember anything? Anything unusual from your past? Sometimes these phenomena are connected to unresolved memories or trauma. I shook my head, but the question lingered. I tried to think back, childhood, college, the years in between. Nothing came to mind that could explain this. No lost time, no repressed memories, just the ordinary blur of life. Jamie reached over, squeezing my hand. It's okay. We'll figure it out. But I could see the worry in their eyes, the fear that maybe this was something we couldn't solve. We spent the rest of the night reviewing the recordings. The audio was clearer than ever, the footsteps, the door, the whisper. The thermal camera showed the cold spot moving through the apartment, pausing beside my bed, then fading away. Dr. Hart took notes, her brow furrowed in concentration. This is remarkable, she said. The consistency, the clarity. It's as if it's following a script. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I heard the whisper. Remember. It haunted my dreams, twisting them into strange, fragmented images, a dark hallway, a door I couldn't open, a voice calling my name from the other side. I woke up drenched in sweat, heart racing, the words still echoing in my ears. The next day, Dr. Hart suggested we try a different approach. Sometimes, hypnosis can help recover lost memories, she explained. If you're willing, I can guide you through a session. It might help us understand what this presence wants you to remember. The idea made me nervous, but I agreed. At this point, I was willing to try anything. We set up in the living room, the curtains drawn, the lights dimmed. Dr. Hart's voice was calm and soothing as she guided me into a relaxed state, asking me to focus on my breathing, to let my thoughts drift. Go back, she said softly. Go back to the first time you felt watched. The first time you heard a voice in the dark. At first, nothing happened. My mind wandered, skimming over memories of childhood bedrooms, late-night study sessions, the quiet loneliness of living alone. But then, something shifted. I saw myself as a child, lying in bed, the room bathed in moonlight. The door creaked open, and a shadow slipped inside. I couldn't see its face, but I felt its presence, cold, heavy, watching. I heard a whisper, so soft I almost missed it. Listen. My heart pounded as the memory sharpened. I remembered waking up the next morning, convinced it had been a dream. But the feeling lingered for days, a sense of being watched, of something waiting just out of sight. I told my parents, but they brushed it off as a nightmare. I learned to ignore it, to push it down, to pretend it wasn't real. Dr. Hart's voice brought me back. Alex, what do you see? I opened my eyes, shaking. It's been with me since I was a kid. I just forgot. Jamie looked at me, their face pale. Do you think it's the same thing? Dr. Hart nodded. It's possible. Sometimes, these presences attach themselves to people, not places. They wait for the right moment to make themselves known. I felt a chill run down my spine. Why now? Why is it trying to talk to me? Dr. Hart considered. Maybe something triggered it. A change in your routine, a new piece of technology, your smartwatch, perhaps. Sometimes, devices can act as amplifiers, making it easier for these entities to communicate. I glanced at the watch on my wrist, suddenly aware of its weight. Had I brought this on myself? Was I responsible for waking whatever had been waiting in the shadows all these years? We spent the rest of the day talking, trying to piece together the puzzle. Dr. Hart suggested we keep recording, to see if the presence would reveal more. It wants you to remember, she said. Maybe if you can, it will move on. That night, I lay in bed, the watch pressed tight against my wrist, the cameras rolling. I closed my eyes, focusing on the memory, willing myself to remember more. The footsteps came, the door creaked open, and the whisper filled the room. Remember. This time, I answered. I'm trying. Show me. The room grew colder, the air thick with anticipation. For a moment, I thought I saw a shadow at the foot of the bed, darker than the rest, shifting in the gloom. The whisper came again, softer, almost sad. You promised. I sat up, heart pounding. Promised what? But the room was silent again, the presence gone. I lay back, staring at the ceiling, the word echoing in my mind. You promised. What had I promised? And to whom? The next morning, I woke with the word promised still ringing in my ears. It clung to me like a fog, coloring every thought, every movement. Jamie made coffee, their hands shaking just enough to spill a few drops on the counter. Dr. Hart was already reviewing the night's recordings, her face drawn and serious. I sat at the table, staring at my smartwatch, willing it to give me answers. The data was the same, heart rate spike at 3:19 a.m., audio file attached. I played it, bracing myself for the now familiar sequence, breathing, footsteps, the door, the whisper. But this time, there was something new. After the whisper, remember, there was a pause, then a faint sound, almost like a child's voice, distant and echoing. I turned up the volume, pressing the watch to my ear. The voice was singing, a lullaby I hadn't heard in years. The melody was simple, haunting, the words just out of reach. I closed my eyes, letting the tune wash over me, and suddenly I was a child again, lying in bed while my mother sang me to sleep. The memory was so vivid I could smell her perfume, feel the warmth of her hand on my forehead. I opened my eyes, heart pounding. I know that song, I whispered. Jamie and Dr. Hart looked up, concern etched on their faces. My mom used to sing it to me when I was little. I haven't thought about it in years. Dr. Hart leaned forward, her eyes sharp. Do you remember the words? I shook my head, frustrated. Just the melody. The words are fuzzy. Jamie pulled out their phone, searching for lullabies, but nothing matched. Dr. Hart suggested we try another hypnosis session, this time focusing on the song. I agreed, desperate for answers. We set up in the living room again, the curtains drawn tight against the morning light. Dr. Hart's voice was calm, guiding me back to that childhood bedroom, to the sound of my mother's voice. The memory came in fragments, a warm glow, the soft rustle of sheets, the gentle rise and fall of the melody. I heard my mother's voice, clear and sweet, singing words that made no sense to me now. Close your eyes, the night is near, shadows fade and dreams appear, the rest slipped away, lost in the haze of memory. But the feeling lingered, a sense of safety, of being protected from something just outside the door. When I came out of the trance, Dr. Hart was thoughtful. Sometimes, lullabies are more than just songs. They can be rituals, ways to ward off fear or keep something at bay. Jamie nodded, their face pale. Do you think your mom knew about whatever this is? I shrugged, overwhelmed. I don't know. She never talked about anything like this. But I always felt safe when she sang that song. Dr. Hart suggested we try playing the melody that night, to see if it changed the pattern. If the presence is connected to your childhood, to that sense of safety, it might respond to the song. Jamie found a music app and recreated the melody as best they could, looping it softly on a speaker by my bed. I wore the watch, set the cameras, and tried to sleep, the lullaby filling the room with its gentle, haunting tune. At 3:19 a.m., the footsteps came, slower this time, almost hesitant. The door creaked open, and the whisper filled the room. Remember. But this time, the presence didn't stop at the foot of the bed. I felt a cold weight settle beside me, the air thick with longing. The lullaby played on, and for a moment, the whisper changed. Thank you. I sat up, heart racing, the room colder than ever. The presence lingered, not menacing, but sad, as if it was waiting for something more. I spoke aloud, my voice trembling. What did I promise? The answer came, softer than before, almost lost in the music. You said you'd never forget. Tears stung my eyes. I remembered now, lying in bed as a child, my mother singing, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Don't forget me, Alex. Promise you'll remember." I'd nodded, half asleep, not understanding the weight of the promise. But something had heard. Something had waited all these years for me to remember. The presence faded, the room warming as the lullaby played on. I lay back, exhausted, the promise echoing in my mind. I'd remembered. But what did it mean? Was it enough? The next day dawned gray and heavy, the kind of morning that makes the world feel smaller, quieter. I moved through my apartment in a daze, the events of the night before replaying in my mind. Jamie hovered nearby, making breakfast but barely touching their food. Dr. Hart sat at the table, reviewing the data from the night, her notebook filling with observations and questions. The lullaby still played softly in my head, its melody lingering like a half-remembered dream. I checked my smartwatch first thing, almost afraid of what I'd find. The heart rate spike was there, but it was different this time, less severe, a gentle rise and fall instead of the sharp, jagged peak I'd grown used to. The audio file was shorter, too. I played it, bracing myself, but all I heard was the lullaby, the faint sound of my own breathing, and a single, soft sigh. No footsteps, no whisper, no door creaking open. Relief washed over me, but it was tinged with uncertainty. Had I done what the presence wanted? Was it finally over? Jamie and Dr. Hart joined me in the living room, both of them looking as tired as I felt. Did anything happen? Jamie asked, voice hushed. I shook my head. Just the song. I think it's gone. Dr. Hart nodded, thoughtful. Sometimes, all it takes is acknowledgement. Spirits, memories, whatever you want to call them, they linger when they're forgotten, when promises are left unkept. You remembered. You kept your promise. We spent the morning talking, trying to make sense of everything. Dr. Hart explained that not all hauntings are malevolent. Some are just echoes, unfinished business, unresolved emotions. Your presence wasn't trying to hurt you. It just wanted to be remembered. Jamie squeezed my hand, relief and exhaustion mingling in their eyes. So what now? They asked. Dr. Hart smiled gently. Now, you heal. You move forward. Keep the lullaby, if it brings you comfort. But don't be afraid to let go. The past is a part of you, but it doesn't have to define you. I nodded, feeling lighter than I had in days. The apartment felt different, too, brighter, warmer, as if a weight had been lifted. I opened the windows, letting in the fresh air, and for the first time in a long time, I felt safe in my own home. Jamie stayed for a while, helping me clean up, laughing at old memories, filling the space with life and light. Dr. Hart packed up her equipment, promising to stay in touch. If anything changes, if you ever need to talk, you know how to reach me. I thanked her, grateful for her calm presence and her belief in my story. That night, I slept with the lullaby playing softly, more for comfort than protection. My dreams were peaceful, filled with memories of my mother's voice, her gentle touch, the warmth of her love. I woke up rested, the fear that had haunted me for so long finally gone. Days passed, then weeks. The recording stopped. My heart rate stayed steady, my sleep deep and undisturbed. Jamie and I grew closer, bonded by the strange ordeal we'd shared. Dr. Hart checked in from time to time, always curious, always supportive. Life slowly returned to normal, but I was changed. I was more aware, more grateful for the small moments of peace and connection. One evening, as I sat on the balcony watching the sun set, I thought about the promise I'd made as a child. I realized that remembering isn't just about holding on to the past, it's about honoring it, learning from it, and letting it shape who you become. The presence that had haunted me was gone, but the lesson remained: we are shaped by our memories, by the promises we keep, and by the love we carry with us, even when it's hidden in the shadows. I still wear my smartwatch every night, more out of habit than necessity. Sometimes, I check the data in the morning, half expecting to see another spike, another audio file. But all I find are the quiet rhythms of sleep, the steady beat of a heart at peace. The technology that once terrified me has become a reminder of how far I've come, of the journey from fear to understanding. And sometimes, when the night is especially quiet, I hum the lullaby to myself, a gentle promise to never forget the things that matter most. A month passed, and the world outside my apartment seemed to move on, oblivious to the strange chapter I'd just closed. I returned to work, my days filled with the familiar rhythm of emails, meetings, and coffee breaks. Jamie and I met up often, sometimes talking about what happened, sometimes pretending it was just a weird dream. Dr. Hart sent me a few articles about memory, sleep, and the ways technology can reveal what we hide from ourselves. I read them all, grateful for her continued support, but I found myself wanting to look forward, not back. Still, the experience had changed me. I noticed things I'd never paid attention to before: the way the light shifted in my apartment at dusk, the subtle creaks and groans of the old building, the gentle pulse of my watch against my wrist. I found comfort in these small details, reminders that I was present, awake, and alive. The fear that had once gripped me was gone, replaced by a quiet curiosity about the world and my place in it. One evening, Jamie and I sat on my balcony, sharing a bottle of wine as the city lights flickered on below. The air was cool, the sky streaked with the last colors of sunset. We talked about everything and nothing, the way friends do when they've been through something together that no one else could understand. Eventually, the conversation drifted back to that night, the footsteps, the whisper, the lullaby. "Do you ever wonder if it could happen again?" Jamie asked, their voice soft. I thought about it for a moment, watching the headlights trace patterns on the street below. Sometimes, I admitted. But I think, whatever it was, it just wanted to be remembered. I kept my promise. I don't think it needs anything else from me. Jamie nodded, swirling their wine. It's weird, isn't it? How something so small, a song, a memory, can hold so much power. I smiled, feeling the truth of it settle in my chest. Yeah. I guess that's what makes us human. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, the city humming around us. I realized then that I wasn't afraid anymore. The unknown didn't feel like a threat, it felt like a mystery, something to be explored rather than feared. I'd faced the darkness and come out the other side, changed but not broken. Later that night, as I got ready for bed, I glanced at my smartwatch charging on the nightstand. I thought about all the nights I'd spent terrified of what it might record, of what I might find in the morning. Now, it was just a tool, a way to track my sleep, to remind me to breathe, to stay present. I slipped it on, feeling its familiar weight, and climbed into bed. Sleep came easily, the lullaby still echoing in the back of my mind. I dreamed of my mother, her voice soft and kind, her arms wrapped around me. In the dream, she smiled and whispered, "You're safe now, Alex. You kept your promise." I woke with tears on my cheeks, but they were tears of relief, not fear. The next morning, I checked the watch out of habit. The data was unremarkable: steady heart rate, deep sleep, no audio files. I smiled, feeling a sense of closure. Whatever had haunted me was gone, its message delivered, its purpose fulfilled. But the story didn't end there. A few weeks later, Dr. Hart called with an update. She'd been analyzing the data, comparing my recordings to other cases she'd studied. "There's something interesting," she said. "A pattern I hadn't noticed before. In every case where a presence tried to communicate, it used technology, watches, phones, even baby monitors. It's as if these devices bridge a gap, allowing things to reach us that otherwise couldn't." I listened, fascinated. "Do you think it's happening to other people right now?" "Maybe," she replied. "But most people ignore the signs. They dismiss the strange noises, the odd recordings, the dreams that feel too real. You paid attention. You listened. That's rare." Her words stayed with me. I started reading more, reaching out to others who'd had similar experiences. I found a small community online, people who'd heard whispers in the night, who'd seen doors open on their own, who'd felt the weight of a promise they couldn't remember making. We shared our stories, our fears, our hopes. It helped, knowing I wasn't alone. I realized then that the real gift wasn't just surviving the haunting, but learning to listen, to myself, to others, to the world around me. The smartwatch that had once been a source of fear had become a symbol of connection, a reminder that sometimes, the things we're most afraid of are just parts of ourselves waiting to be understood. And so, I kept listening. Not just for footsteps or whispers, but for the quiet moments of meaning that fill every day, the laughter of a friend, the comfort of a song, the steady beat of my own heart. I kept my promise, not just to the presence that haunted me, but to myself. As the weeks turned into months, the memory of those nights faded into something softer, less frightening. Life moved forward, as it always does, but I carried the lessons with me. I found myself more attuned to the world, more willing to notice the subtle things, the way a room feels when you enter, the hush that falls just before sleep, the comfort of a familiar voice. I realized that the line between the ordinary and the extraordinary is thinner than I'd ever believed, and that sometimes, all it takes to cross it is a single moment of attention. Jamie and I grew closer, our friendship deepened by what we'd shared. We talked often about the experience, not as a horror story, but as a turning point. "It's strange," Jamie said one night as we walked through the city, "how something so terrifying can end up making you feel more alive." I nodded, understanding exactly what they meant. The fear had been real, but so was the sense of wonder that followed, the realization that the world is bigger, stranger, and more mysterious than I'd ever allowed myself to believe. Dr. Hart's research continued, and she kept me updated on her findings. She'd started a project collecting stories like mine, building a database of unexplained phenomena captured by smart devices. "There's a pattern," she told me during one of our calls. "It's not just about ghosts or hauntings. It's about memory, about the way technology is changing how we experience the world, and maybe even how the world experiences us." I found comfort in her words, in the idea that my story was part of something larger, something still unfolding. I became more involved in the online community I'd found, sharing my story, listening to others, offering support where I could. Some people were skeptical, of course. There are always those who refuse to believe what they can't see or measure. But most were just looking for understanding, for someone to tell them they weren't alone. I realized that the real power of my experience wasn't in the fear or the mystery, but in the connection it created, with Jamie, with Dr. Hart, with strangers who'd become friends. One night, as I was getting ready for bed, I received a message from someone new in the group. They'd found an audio file on their smartwatch, recorded at 3:17 a.m., the same time my own recordings had started. The file was short, just a few seconds of static, followed by a single, whispered word, "Remember." My heart skipped a beat as I read their message, the old fear flickering for just a moment before settling into something else: recognition, empathy, a sense of responsibility. I replied, sharing my story, offering reassurance. "You're not alone," I wrote. "Sometimes, these things just want to be acknowledged. Listen to what it's trying to tell you. Trust yourself." The conversation continued late into the night, and by the end, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known I was missing. Helping someone else through their fear made my own seem smaller, more manageable. As I lay in bed that night, the city quiet outside my window, I thought about the promise I'd made as a child, to remember, to hold on to the things that matter. I realized that promises like that aren't just about the past, they're about the future, too. They're about staying open to the world, about being willing to listen, even when what you hear doesn't make sense. They're about choosing connection over isolation, understanding over fear. The smartwatch on my wrist buzzed softly, reminding me to breathe. I smiled, grateful for the technology that had once terrified me, now just another part of my life. I knew that there would always be things I couldn't explain, moments when the world felt strange or unsettling. But I also knew that I could face them, that I could listen, remember, and move forward. In the months that followed, I found myself drawn to new experiences. I traveled more, met new people, tried things I'd once been too afraid to attempt. I kept in touch with Jamie and Dr. Hart, our bond unbreakable. I continued to write, to share my story, to listen to others. The fear that had once defined me was gone, replaced by a quiet confidence, a belief that I could handle whatever came next. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear the lullaby in my dreams. It's not a warning anymore, but a comfort, a reminder that I am not alone, that I am connected to something larger than myself. I wake up rested, the promise kept, the past at peace. And so, my story ends not with fear, but with hope. My smartwatch recorded something while I slept, something strange, something unexplainable, something that changed me forever. But in the end, it wasn't the presence in the night that mattered most. It was the lesson it left behind, to listen, to remember, to keep my promises, and to never stop searching for meaning in the quiet spaces of my life. If you're listening to this, if you've ever felt the weight of something unseen, know that you're not alone. Sometimes, the things that haunt us are just memories waiting to be acknowledged, promises waiting to be kept. And sometimes, all it takes to find peace is the courage to listen, to yourself, to others, to the world around you. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep, pay attention to the quiet. Listen for the whispers, the footsteps, the lullabies. Remember the promises you've made, and know that you have the strength to face whatever comes. The world is full of mysteries, but you are not alone in facing them. And if your smartwatch ever records something strange in the night, don't be afraid. It might just be a reminder, to listen, to remember, and to keep moving forward.